welcome everybody to the last of the season's Capital West Football Officials Association local rules meeting. This evening we have two speakers for you. We have Carrie Allian, who's going to go over the passing game, and Chris Cordy is going to go over line play, blocking, and some of the things that go into that. If you were with us on our last session a few weeks ago, this is the one that we tried to get going then with Chris and had a few technical difficulties. So I want to thank Chris for taking the time to come back and join us again. A couple of things I want to go over before we get started. If you've not used Zoom before, you'll notice that down at the bottom of your screen, you should have some controls for things like a Q&A, a chat, and a few other items. During the presentations, if you have questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A boxes to ask those questions, and I will be monitoring that, and we will either get you a written answer back in the Q&A module for it, or we will break in and ask the presenters to answer that question for you as part of the presentation. If you put things in the chat, we may miss those because not all of the notices that go in the chat will pop up on the screen of the moderators while we're doing the presentation. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Jim Kakos is going to give us a quick update to begin with. So Mr. Kakos, if you would join us.
Hey, good evening. Just wanted to make one major announcement for everybody that is logged in for tonight's meeting. In order to get your attendance recorded, you must be with us for 75% of the actual meeting that we are conducting today. When attendance is recorded electronically, we do see when you have logged in and when you do log out. A couple other announcements. Nominations for president and 2 at-large board members are still currently open. We will be sending an email out in the very near future with elections for those 2 positions. Also keep in mind, I believe we still have the school sportsmanship nominations still open. And again, we will have that also out for general election. As far as COVID rules, would like to go over that one more time with everybody, especially the working playoffs and even non-playoffs. When you walk to and from the field of play, you must have a mask on, no exceptions. Once you enter the field and you talk to the coaches, try to keep your social distancing. You don't have to be right upon the coach. Try to stay 6 feet apart. Keep your mask on while you're doing your pre-meetings with your coaches. And also keep in mind that do not shake your coach's hand. Avoid any fist bumps, elbow bumps, anything along the lines with that. Especially with the playoffs, observers have been instructed to watch these as you enter and exit the field. And if there are any issues with any of this, we're instructed to report back to Bruce and Bo immediately. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Carrie Allian. He's going to go ahead and present the passing game.
All right, thanks, Jim. Carrie's getting his up here. There we go.
All right. Just came in from mowing the grass. You can tell I didn't do a very good job. Okay, we got. And okay, let me click on here. All right. So technologically speaking, we're up and running. So it was all downhill from here. The hard part's over. So anyway, welcome everybody to the last CWFOA meeting of the season. Congratulations on all your seasons so far. It's obviously been a unique year, but a fun year. In terms of that, and it's obviously all the teams and players and coaches have been appreciative that we still play a vital role in high school football. And it's been another fun year, at least for my crew, or speaking from my crew's perspective. So what tonight I'm kind of going to go over basically is the passing game. I really just want to hit on a lot of the basics of it. If you want to go to more in-depth look at it, I direct you to the Gold Book, pages 17 and 18. Really covers a lot of the passing game from our perspective, from a mechanics standpoint. So I really just want to hit on three things, from three things with our crew, three things with each of the position groups, and then I'll go over a little bit of penalty things that can happen with the passing game, and then we'll get right to some video to be able to share with everybody and be able to, if nothing else, take a look at and just get some repetition in as we potentially continue on with our season. So from a crew standpoint, really what I look at, not different than what players would be involved in. If you think about a team, when a team wants to be successful, what do they want to do? They want to get lined up correctly. They don't want to know what their keys are, like who am I blocking on this play, who am I tackling on this play. The next thing they want to know is, okay, are we running a pass play here? Are we running a running play? And then once the play gets started, they're just going to have to read and react in that regard. And then as far as the last thing for a team, the only signal a team would love to hear from us is the touchdown signal. Any play that happens, any kind of scoring play for them from an offensive standpoint, they just want to hear a touchdown signal. So same thing with us as officials. We want to get lined up correctly. So that involves our IP or our initial position. And then the next thing is what are our keys on that particular play. And then the number two thing that I want to focus on really from a crew standpoint, we start as a crew, we start the play stationary. We read run or pass. We read and react based on the fact that it is a run or pass, and then we end the play in a stationary position. That should be kind of our goal as we go through each play, and particularly in a passing situation. And then the last thing there, the third thing from a crew standpoint, is this is kind of what we have to kind of administer the game. We've got flags, we've got beanbags, we've got whistles, and we got our signals. That's kind of how we communicate to ourselves. It's kind of how we communicate to the teams as far as how we're going to administer that game on that particular night. To move just to the referee position, referee starts out 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, 8 yards wide on the wide side of the field. That's kind of his IP. His key is the opposite tackle, is the quarterback, and I put the word passer in parentheses. That'll come up a little bit later as far as the importance of that. And then really just from a passing game standpoint, the referee's third key talks about in the gold book is, when a ball is thrown, to, mentally say or just hum to yourself, ball's away. And that's about, how long we take from a standpoint of whether we're going to potentially have any extracurricular activities after the quarterback has thrown the ball. And then really from a referee standpoint to know what was that particular pass a pass, or was it a fumble? Did the ball get knocked out early, or did the arm get coming forward and the ball ended up coming forward? Three things for the umpire. Number one, 7 yards off the line of scrimmage inside the tight ends is kind of his IP. They do talk about in there, just to add one third thing to it, or a third thing to it would be, you don't want to always be in the same position. You kind of do a little bit of an opposite of mirroring with your referee, and just to vary your position a little bit. And then the second thing the umpires really focused on, especially in terms of the passing game, is expanded neutral zone. Just kind of keep in mind as we go through some plays later on what that means. And then really helping out in the passing game, once a ball is thrown, the umpire is going to do some rotating to be able to get in position and kind of help his fellow officials or his fellow crewmates with some catch or no catch situations. Our line of scrimmage guys, pretty much similar, the same, just as far as narrowing it down to the three main things for the linesman and the line judge: 10 yards outside of the widest receiver, but never inside the numbers. Okay, so we don't want to ever come too close to the field because you want to be able to get back depending on the situation. And then obviously, if the ball snapped on the hash and you got receivers on your wide side, if you're the linesman or line judge, potentially you could be pushed out of bounds as far as your initial position is concerned. You're responsible for the widest receiver at the snap, but also flat in this day and age with wide open offenses, running backs coming out in the flat, screen passes, bubble passes to wide receivers, stuff like that could enter into your area as far as who you might be responsible for on a particular pass play. And then really the how we want to officiate from a pass play standpoint for the linesman and the line judge, and really anybody, is we want to officiate players first, we want to officiate their feet second, and we want to officiate their ball third. So it's a game of football. You know, when you start out, all of us have probably maybe played the game at some point. And, you know, the ball is kind of the most important thing to us when we're playing. But as an official, it's kind of the third most important thing. The ball will take care of itself in a lot of situations. So we want to make sure we officiate players first, feet second, and the ball third. And then lastly, for us back judges in the room, or just for your information, we start 20 yards off the line of scrimmage. Goal is to be between the uprights, so not any wider from an initial position standpoint. And we initially, speaking, take care of the inside receivers on a particular formation. That'll come up a little bit in some of the video I show as far as how we administer that. And then really our focus, at least at the high school level especially, is on the quarterback. Once the ball is snapped a little bit as well, kind of reading his eyes a little bit, because he's going to take care, he's probably going to take us to the play, especially if we have wide open offenses as far as situation before. And then the last thing, or the third thing for the back judge, just to give him a third thing, is really you want to maintain cushion. You're kind of the center fielder, to borrow a baseball term out there, and you're always looking for your head linesman and your line judge as far as support. And that could become, that's really in the form of communication if you have issues with a particular play in between yourself and the guys on the line of scrimmage. Moving forward then to penalties, I'm going to hit on communication a little bit first. Crew communication obviously is important, especially if we have multiple flags on the field. We want to be able to communicate that way. So we make sure we know we have both the same thing. If we don't have the same thing, then we got to report different things to the referee so he understands what we have. And then pass, as far as line of scrimmage, we're dealing with pass plays tonight. So obviously, for it to be a pass play, the ball has to go across the line of scrimmage. We can have passes that are thrown behind the line of scrimmage. We'll get to that a little bit as we go forward as well. And then the penalties I put on here really are ones that are most appropriate, or that we're going to have the most, that directly report or replay to the passing game. Obviously, we can have any kind of penalty on any kind of play, but these are just the ones that kind of highlighted from a passing play standpoint. The first one, 5 yards illegal forward pass. That includes a loss of down, as you can see on there. And I'm just kind of read from the rule book on there, because there's 5 situations from an illegal forward pass standpoint. So on page 61, Article 2, it says an illegal forward pass is a foul, and illegal forward passes include a pass after team possession has changed during the down. So obviously, if we have a fumble recovery and the defense is returning it, or we have an interception return, they obviously cannot throw a forward pass. A pass from beyond the neutral zone. So obviously, once A, or the offense, has passed the line of scrimmage, they cannot throw a forward pass. A second and subsequent forward pass is thrown during the down. So obviously, if we have any kind of double passes or laterals or anything like that, we need to make sure that they are backwards the first time, so they're eligible to throw a forward pass on the second one. The fourth one would be a pass intentionally thrown into an area not occupied by an eligible offensive receiver. So that's an illegal forward pass. And then the last one is thrown incomplete to save the loss of yardage or to conserve time. So end of half situations, end of game situations, where a quarterback might be, smart enough to try and get rid of the ball, but if he's doing it intentionally to try and conserve time, that could be considered an illegal forward pass. The other 5-yard penalties are illegal touching by A. That also includes a loss of down. If B touches it, then all bets are off in terms of there. We don't have any issues if B is the first to touch it. 5 yards for an ineligible receiver or lineman downfield. That does not include a loss of down, so just a reminder of that. The only 10-yard penalty that really relates to the passing game is defensive holding. So that actually came up in our game on Friday night that John Phillips, my linesman, and I had. We both had a penalty on the same play, so we communicated together, and the receiver was being held kind of early in the route. But if we can make that defensive pass interference, because he was still continuing to hold him while the ball was in the air, we want to do that. So then 15-yard penalties that relate directly to the passing game are roughing the passer. That includes an automatic first down. That's a one to make note of. And then the other 15 yards are DPI, defensive pass interference, offensive pass interference. Obviously, several years ago, they took the automatic first down away from those. So we need to keep that in mind. And then if you do have DPI or OPI, it's just helpful for you mentally to be able to categorize those things as far as, what exactly did the offended party do as far as that goes. Okay. So that's it from a presentation standpoint. What I'm going to go to next then is just some video. And as we go through these, the first couple is really just kind of warm-ups. Games can happen. I didn't really put these videos in any particular order because, quite frankly, a game doesn't happen in any particular order. So we're just going to kind of go through several plays. We might have some similar type plays later on, as opposed to in a row. We might have some that are in a row that are similar. The first couple I want to show you is really, these are just plays. The first two are really all about our IP as far as lining up. If anybody has had Dublin Jerome before, they are in this type of lineup quite a bit, meaning 5 wide, even if they run out of it, 4 or 5 wide. So it does at the high school level with 5 officials, it does present a little bit of challenge as far as your IPs and who I got at the snap, if we have motion and all that kind of thing. So right here, stationary wise, if we want to look at it, we've got our linesman here. He's got number 4, the widest receiver. Up at the top, our line judge has the widest receiver. So guess what? The back judge, you got your inside receivers. I've got 2 to this side. So I'm probably going to key a little bit more from a visual standpoint to those 2 players than I am to the player over here on this side to begin with. But that could change if we do have motion in terms of that. The nice part about this play as we go through it is, as you can see, the team they're playing, Marysville, none of the receivers are in a threatened position. So I don't feel like I have to focus too much. We can probably go to zone pretty quickly from a reading the play standpoint. So obviously that one just turned into a running play. So really the only concern there is, again, this first couple were just for initial position IP purposes, but obviously that quarterback did scramble. So that keeps the referee involved because the referee is involved with the quarterback, and it keeps the line of scrimmage guys involved in case that quarterback would have pulled up and thrown a pass. And then we have some concern whether he would have been, did he throw that pass behind the line of scrimmage or did he throw it from across the line of scrimmage? Here is the second one. So a similar type lineup, except you can barely see it over there, but we've got the running back over on that side. So it's only 4 wide this time. So obviously this one's a little more simpler. We got the line of scrimmage guy with the wide out here, line of scrimmage guy wide out there, and then back judge has the 2 inside receivers there. And then the running back, he could go either way, but the line judge might be able to keep an eye on him if he ends up coming out into the flat. But again, this one is more for just IP purposes, so we'll let it run. So again, we end up with a sack on that play. The line of scrimmage guys held their position, didn't come back right away, and obviously the referee is not out of position, he's just out of the video. But the nice part is, if he's out of the video, that means he kept his depth properly and was able to officiate that particular play, and we just had a normal sack. Nothing crazy happened to the quarterback on that particular play that we needed to be aware of. Okay, the next 2 I'm going to show you are in succession, and this is just a reminder. These 2 plays are a reminder that you need to be ready to officiate from the very beginning of the day, the very beginning of the game. So this is actually the second play after the kickoff. The clips I'm going to show you are the second and the third play after the kickoff. So here we got lined up position wise. So you can see the head linesman is pinching in a little bit because all he has is a tight end over there. We've got the widest guy. You can't see the line judge, but I'm sure he's punching back because his widest guy is behind the line or off the line of scrimmage. And then the back judge has the two inside receivers, and then we've got a running back there right next to the quarterback. So we'll run this play. Probably run this one a couple of times just because it involves a lot of the officials on it. All right, so we got everybody coming up. So we can see, I'll run that one more time just because it did happen quick. So obviously we got everybody involved because, hey, I'll stop it here for just a second. It involves one of the inside receivers, okay, which is the back judge's key at the snap. It involves a tipped ball. So obviously that involves the umpire and his turn and rotation. And because of the location of it just being a few yards downfield, it affects the line of scrimmage guys as well. So we'll show this one more time. Boom. So we got a good signal. Good job signaling by the umpire saying yes. You know, we talked about in the beginning, one of the umpire's keys is to rotate and help with catch, no catch. Did a good job there. Has it boxed in with the line of scrimmage guy. The back judge is coming up because that actually was his key. That was one of his receivers coming up and maybe helping with that. And then we've got the linesman up there killing the play as well, because we do have just mirroring his opposite official, because we did have that as an interception before it hit the ground. So good job, good coverage by the crew on that particular play. The very next play, which is the first play of offense for this team. So obviously that was the second play of the game. This is the third play of the game. Again, we've got this one's a little bit more challenging. This is why we talk about the back judge needs to watch the quarterback, because this is about as balanced a formation as you can get. We've got the line judge punching back because the closest guy to him is off the line. The linesman's punching back because the closest guy to him off the line. So then they can count their numbers, make sure they got enough on the line, or in our case in high school now, make sure we don't have any more than 4 in the backfield. So they can see that they don't. So they're lined up properly. But we got 2 inside receivers, which are both the back judge's responsibility, but they are on opposite sides. And then we got a running back that's barely offset. He's pretty much behind the quarterback. So pretty much balanced the formation. So all the more reason for the back judge just to read the quarterback's eyes to see where he might go with this particular pass play. So we got a fake little mini boot, deep out, up the sideline, and we got a touchdown. So with 3 plays into the game, we've had an interception and a touchdown. I'll show it one more time. The nice part about it is it's kind of a combo help situation. So the receiver ends up being one of the inside receivers. So that's the back judge's guy. He does run a deep pattern, so the back judge is not going to come off that guy. But our sideline ends up being threatened. So it brings the line judge into play as far as making a ruling on this particular play and what happens at the end. So fake boot, roll out, ball's away by the referee. You can see the line judge coming up and pointing. So obviously he's pointing to the back judge. So however you communicate on your particular crews, that's kind of how we communicate on our crew. So Paul was pointing to me, and so that means he's got his receiver inbounds. So basically any play inside the numbers, Paul's going to communicate to me one way or the other. That's just kind of our philosophy. as far as how we communicate, whether inbounds, out of bounds, or still playing or not. So it allowed me to, as a back judge, because like we talked about, or like we can talk about from a back judge standpoint, that was pretty much ended up being once Paul gave me the indication he was in bounds, nothing else was threatened. So I don't really need to signal right away. So as long as I get that confirmation from Paul, it's going to be a touchdown, whether I signal it as soon as he crosses the goal line or whether I signal touchdown and he's 5 yards deep in the end zone. There's no real hurry in making that signal for a touchdown in terms of that. Pretty much once he stayed in bounds, God mom and everybody knew he scored a touchdown on that play. So no real reason to be in a big hurry from a signaling standpoint. Okay, on to the next clip. Okay, so then real quickly, we got locked up. We got the outside guys again are back. So they're both punching back. Great job. 2 inside guys are on the line of scrimmage. Those are the back judge responsibility. The running back is offset a little bit in this particular situation. So as a back judge, I might lean my eyes a little bit, looking over in this direction at the snap. But again, it's pretty balanced, so I'm still going to read my quarterback in terms of that. So this one, we're going to highlight the official on the top of the screen. In terms of the situation as we watch the play, we get a little bit of no fake mini rollout. So obviously in a 5-man crew, that line of scrimmage guy has a lot of things going on. So we got to roll out. So obviously the referee is rolling out to protect the quarterback. The line of scrimmage guy did a great job of holding his line of scrimmage, because once that quarterback roll out, he needs to be able to still rule on whether he potentially might throw the ball across the line of scrimmage, or at least be able to help with that or have an opinion on it. But also the pass gets thrown right near the sideline. So like we talked about in the beginning, from a head linesman standpoint, one of the 3 things that we talked about was officiate players, officiate the feet, and then officiate the ball. Because obviously this receiver caught the ball. So if this line of scrimmage official would have watched the ball first and said, "Oh, he caught it, great, we got a completion," and then he wouldn't have had a chance to look at his feet or look at the players, where the players were at on the field. So that's the reason we go in that order. We'll show it one more time as we go through it. So out, rotate around, referee's coming over to help out, open the gate, and then we got a pass. And then the line of scrimmage guys staying right down the line to be able to signal incomplete, because that receiver did catch the ball, but he watched his feet first. His first foot was out of bounds. So we have an incomplete pass. So great job. Okay, took a little pause on that one. Okay, so we're back to, go back just a hair. Okay, so we're back to Dublin Jerome again with their 5 wides, or 4 or 5 wides. So obviously this one's a little easier to read. Back judge has the 2 inside receivers here, line of scrimmage guy here, line of scrimmage guy here, and then this guy we might need to pay attention to depending on how the play develops. But we talked about in the beginning a little bit too, with the more wide open offenses like this one of the things we can have is some bubble screens, not only to running backs, but to wide receivers. So that's what we're going to get on this particular play. So pretty simple play, nothing happened. But really, as a back judge, I have both these, or any back judge, you got both these blocks right here, because those are your 2 inside receivers. They end up going down and engaging these guys. So we need to make sure those blocks are legal. Paul did a good job holding his spot there, because his receiver actually just took a fake step downfield and then stepped back to catch the bubble screen. And so Paul did a good job staying stationary and then just officiating, opening the gate, so to speak, and officiating the play. So we'll see this one more time. Blocks are good, all that's good. So good job. Good job good job covering the basics. IP, who do I have on the particular play, read and react, and then just officiate the play from that standpoint. Okay, this one we're going to highlight the head linesman again. So again, we've got similar formation as we just finished with. So we got 4 wide, 2 inside for the back judge, 1 each for the line of scrimmage guys. So we get a rollout. So John's holding a little bit, comes back, gets a completion. Boom. Then he gets a flag at the end for what we would call, in more recent terms, a second act. So so Gus, as the referee, is, he's not in the picture on a lot of these wide angle shots, but he's got the quarterback, because the quarterback does roll out. The line of scrimmage doesn't get threatened too much, but John does a good job of coming back a little bit in case he needs to rule and help on that. Throw, pass, and then we got, you can't quite see it, but at the bottom of it, it looks like the receiver was out of bounds, and then number 7 did what we call a second act. He turned and threw him to the ground. Even though he never lost contact with him, he still did a second act on that particular play. And committed a tackle-on penalty against the defense. All right, we're going to highlight the Paul at the top. This one, I go back a little bit. So this one does our first one with motion. So obviously we had a balanced formation. As a back judge, I was already leaning a little bit to this side because my running back was offset. But obviously this motion guy clinches it for me. My eyes, in addition to be on the quarterback, I've got, I'm going to end up with 2 receivers over here on the inside. So John's got this guy, Paul's that guy, I got the 2 inside guys as this play goes. And this is just a quick example, simple play, receiver falls down, and we go in, not to a lot of reverse mechanics, but we go into reverse mechanics, and Paul just comes down, gets the spot, and goes on from there. Obviously the Marysville's going to get the ball in that situation. So pretty simple one there. All right, so this is a situation. This is going to be basically, we're going to highlight the head linesman and the back judge on this particular play. Just because the receiver at the snap is the head linesman's, but as you can see, what you'll see by this guy's pattern, he ends up pretty deep downfield. So that's going to involve the back judge in this particular play as well. So straight drop back. Nice play, good job. Back judge in this particular, it was not myself, it was another guy filled in this particular game. Did a great job staying in center field. That's what I talked about in the beginning, from being a center field position. He did a good job on that particular play of getting back and be able to help and rule on that particular play. Okay, on this particular play, we're going to look at the U, H, and the L for this. So watch as the play develops. So we talked about backs out of the backfield. Pretty simple play. We'll watch that one more time, but the backs, if they don't flare out in the back, this one comes right over the middle. So it comes right in the kitchen of the umpire. He does a good job of keeping his cushion, staying clear, rotating, and then all 3 of them, line of scrimmage guys, clearly a first down by 3 or 4 yards. So we got everybody mirroring each other with 2 times calling the first down. So great job on that one. This is a good example, like we talked about, of players, feet, and ball. So we got a rollout, pass. You can see sidelines threatened. Okay. Okay, Paul, I got your text about one or two more. So thank you very much. I always like to have more material than less. So I want to appreciate, thanks for everybody for holding on. So I will, after this one, I'll jump to a couple of them that I really wanted to show towards the end. So that is cool. All right. So we're going to show this one more time. This is a good example of at the start of the play. The back judge has these two inside receivers, but this inside receiver ends up making the catch over near the sideline. So we obviously, the line judge has to get involved. And Paul does a good job of coming up and officiated players, officiated the feet first, and then we got a catch. So he went from there after that. Okay, so we got a deep pass. Again, it starts out same player. So it's a head linesman's player. Good job catching up and good job on cushion on the back judge. The only thing I would say to back judges out there on this one, you don't necessarily have to come up and get that spot. You can just tell your line of scrimmage guy, hey, I got him on the 16. I got him on the 16, just so you can continue to keep your cushion as far as that particular play. But good job initially staying in center field and being able to officiate the play from that standpoint. And then the last one I'll show. Okay. This one here, this involves everybody. This is the whole crew. We got a lot going on in this particular play. So we might see it twice to finish up, but we'll start in the beginning with our keys. So line of scrimmage guy, John's got this guy, Paul's got this guy. I've got the two inside receivers, or the back judge, because I wasn't on this game. I have the two inside receivers. And then we've got the running back offset. So all the more reason for the back judge to be kind of keying on this side of the field at the snap. So what do we got here? Okay, so just think about who's signaling that. Okay, the referee's back there. We got two line of scrimmage guys, just making sure that particular pass was backward, just like we talked about. We can't throw two forward passes in a particular play. So that was our first indicator is, hey, is this play still good? And then boom, right there. Okay, so you got this. Nothing happened. You can see the defender went after that player, but he did not go. He went right by him after the ball was thrown. But just like in the beginning, we talked about for the referee, one of the referees' responsibility is the quarterback. But what I put in parentheses, if you remember, is the word passer. Because if you think about the rule book, it's called roughing the passer, not roughing the quarterback. So just keep in mind that passer still is afforded protection. And so if he does get roughed in any way from a protection standpoint, that could happen. And then we got the pass thrown. We got a little bit of bump there. So the only thing maybe I would encourage, again, the back judge to do on that one, maybe to play a little bit more center field, and it might be able to be stationary at the moment of decision on that particular play to see if there was enough contact to warrant pass interference. But then we do have an interception, so we got a long return. So now that right up the sideline, so at any point, the line judge could rule on whether he stepped out of bounds or not. And then come up and officiate the play, kind of open the gate and let him go by in terms of that. So, all right. Thanks a lot, everybody. I just hit stop share, Scott. Does that sound correct?
Yep, that'll do.
Okay, stop share and that'll get back. Thanks for listening. Hope everybody learned something tonight. I know I did from watching these clips. Good luck with the rest of your season and have a good night, and we will talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you. Got away clean. There were no questions for you on that time.
Okay.
Good presentation. I appreciate you doing that for us. And so, folks, next up, we're going to have Chris Cordy. So take a moment or two here to get his presentation going. And Chris is going to talk about line.
Hey, thanks everybody for having me on today. Going to be talking about offensive holding philosophy. You know, I've done something like this before, 2 or 3 times, and the best thing that I would say is, you know, our best presentations is we steal from other people. You know, and that's kind of like how we officiate. We hobnob, we talk with people and see what their philosophies are, what they do, and you try to incorporate that into your game. And that's kind of like what I'm doing also within this presentation. I got some friends down in Southwest and some friends up in Northeast that helped out to get me some information, and I just put it all into one big presentation. If you got any questions, just hold until the end. Oh, shoot. I gotta hit play. Where's play at? Sorry about this. I'm not used to doing all this by myself. I always have somebody else. Okay. Information presented can be found in the following books or organizations: through the NASA, Referee Magazine, and then a book called The Ultimate Book of Holding. And I got this information from Dayton Area Official Association also. Words of advice: always do as your assigner instructs you to do. And in our case, we also got to do what our DOD instructs us to do. That's in the Gold Book. And, within the philosophy of pages 40 through 42. And it's all spelled out in there with advantage and disadvantage. And that goes along with all the other positions that we talk about. What kind of official are you? That's the first thing you have to figure out is what kind of official are you? Are you a by the book guy that believes holding occurs on every play? Or are you set out to find a guilty player? These types of officials usually throws more flags and statistically have a difficult time advancing throughout their officiating career. So yes, you can have holding every play. And, if a player comes up to me and says, hey, number 62 is holding me. Okay, well, what's he doing? He's grabbing my jersey and not letting me play. Okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to hold on to it. And I may key in on 62 for the next couple plays. And then by theory, are you an official by theory, looking for an advantage versus disadvantage? If no advantage was gained, then there's no foul occurred. This type of official typically throws less flags and statistically advances within their officiating career. Again, if you look at page 40 to 42, talks about advantage and disadvantage. I know I was working a lower level game last week and classic hold on the outside. Kid was stretching it and they're wanting me to throw holding. I'm not going to throw holding because the kid made a tackle. If the kid if that tight end is reaching for him and he grabs his jersey and that defensive end is stretching it out and he makes the play, we got no hold. But I'm going to go into more further here. Okay, you got two different methods of legal blocking. You got the cupped hand and the open hand. Back in the day when a lot of us were playing, we had to have our hands in and look like a T, formed with our fists. And I know when I got into college is when the cupped hands started to come in. Cupped hand, blocker's elbows are inside or outside the shoulders. Palms are not facing the opponent. Forearms are not extended more than 45 degrees. This is kind of like what we used to grow up on. We do see a little bit of it, but if it's done that way, it's not by design, trust me, because they're not doing that. And then you have the open hand. This is the one that they're teaching now. Hands are in advance of the elbow, at or below the shoulders of the blocker and the opponent, except when the opponent squats or ducks during the block. Blockers must remain within their frame and within the frame of the opponent. As you can tell, what a lot of guys are doing, the game is played inside, and that is where they're going to shoot their hands into their pecs, into the inside the shoulders, and that's when they're going to grab their shoulder pads on the inside. We can call it every time, but it's hard to call that every time. the opponent's frame. Frame is at the front of the opponent's body or below the shoulders. So as you can see right here, this is his frame. And where the 5 and where the 8 is, this is where they want to put their hands when they have their open hands. When you hear them say you have to punch them, that's what they call a punch, with their thumbs up and they're punching, trying to push them off. What is holding? By rule, holding is when an offensive player other than their other uses his hands, arms, or legs to hook, lock, clamp, grasp, encircle, or hold in an effort to restrain his or her opponent. And that's the big word there, restrain. Big thing is the big word I use is restriction. We need to be consistent. If you're going to call a hold, I mean, if you haven't called a hold all game and it's now fourth quarter and you're going to call a hold, you're probably going to have a coach get on your wing, or he's going to yell loud enough now where you can hear him say, "You haven't called holding all night. Why are you calling it now?" The only way that could be possible is if the kid turns around, the offensive player turns around, literally grabs him or tackles him. That should be the only way you should call it. But we need to call all holds the same way every play. If it wasn't a hold in the first quarter, then it wasn't a hold in the fourth. Kind of like what I just said. The hold it had an apparent effect on the play. So if we're going to the right and the left side is holding, do we have, is it part of the play? This is in the goal book. That's not part of the play. It needs to be part of the play. Could the opponent being held have gained separation? Did he or she try to fight through it? This is one where I go with what my buddy Bob Nemi says. That's just dancing. If my defensive player is not trying to get free, then obviously they're not trying to get the call of holding against them. So make them work. If they say, "Hey, he's holding me," I go, "Well, yeah, because you got to show me you're being held." If you're doing a rip move and you got to get that arm up and you can't get that arm up, then we're going to see that part. You have to make a mental checklist on, and we have real quick, we have to make this mental checklist quickly as the game is moving. On every potential hold, you need to ask yourself 3 questions prior to throwing your flag. Is there a material restriction? Is it at the point of attack? And can the opponent being restricted have any bearing on the play? Was there some type of advantage gainer by the hold? That's what you have to figure out right away. I mean, it's a lot of times, most of our holds all happen at the line of scrimmage. So that's our point of attack. And we have to be able to see, did we see a jersey pull? Did we see the arm being pulled down? Things like that. Categories of offensive holding. Like Kerry said on his DPIs and OPIs, you got to be able to classify them. Everybody in the stadium knows that was a pass interference. But the coach needs to know, and we have to relay that information because they got to coach them up. No different in holding. Did he tackle him? What he did? He had a takedown, pullover, hook and restrict, grab and restrict, jerk and restrict. I know the philosophy on our crew. We give the verbal, grab and restrict, and pulled him to the side. We will automatically show each other what they did, and that way the wing can communicate that to their coaches. And then here's some differences, some examples. Tackle typically occurs as part of the block below the waist, or when the offensive player is beaten. That's another thing. When the offensive player is going to, when they lose their feet, that's when they're going to cheat. So that's in that case, that's when they're going to hold. And this is when they're going to tackles, when they're beat. Takedown, pullover. Takedowns when an offensive player takes the defender down to the ground. Mostly it'll occur as the size of it during advantage and disadvantage occurs. So basically, if you're 5'10", you're going against a guy that's 6'4", and you're having a hard time blocking him, you're just going to grab the inside and just pull him over. And that's where we have to be able to see that, because that's a lot of times we say that the defensive player just overpowered him. Well, no, actually, the offensive player is trying to use that to his advantage, and we have to hit that. And here at the end of it, right there. Hook and restrict. Blocker's hands go to the outside of the body, and he or she hook the opponent, usually with the arm, and also restrict them from having any bearing on the play. I don't see this too much at all. I see more when, on something like this on the top picture, and then them just, slamming him down, hook onto the arm, and then pull him down. That's what I see mostly. Grab and restrict. Offensive player grabs and restricts the defender from having any bearing on the play. So he's going to grab anywhere within the middle of the jersey and the shoulder, and then you're just going to pull. There's your restriction right there. Jerk and restrict. Offensive player moves both hands up the defender's shoulder pads and then grab the jersey and jerk the defender from whatever side he or she wants in order to delay or make it to where the defender doesn't have any bearing on the play. Well, a lot of times I don't see this, but, with the hands going that high. But what I do see is the defender, if they're going in a gap and they're shooting a gap, well, the offensive player is just going to ride him. But then when the defender figures out what he's doing, he tried to rip through the front of him, and then that's when the jerk is going to happen. So you got a checklist for holding. You got to know the rules. You have to have philosophy. You got to know your philosophy. And you need to know your initial responsibilities at the snap. You need to be in position. Know the warning signs. Recognize the point of attack. Get the spot of the foul. Know your enforcements. We know what holding is. It's 10 yards. The spot of the foul, we can always throw. If we don't get the flag at the spot of the foul right away when we throw it, we can always put it there before we enforce. And that's another thing. When you enforce, make sure you move that flag to where you're enforcing from. Because if you're enforcing a foul that happened 3-5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, now that becomes a 15-yard penalty. So, and always remember, most holdings happen at the line of scrimmage, and we need to know our warning signs. As our feet beat, did we get beat? And we need to be in position. A lot of times, what I do in my positioning is, and I picked this up from other people. I try to figure out my double teams right away as they come up to the line. If I got a guy in the gap and I know they've been shooting the gap, I'm going to leave that guy go. If I got guys that are head up on each other, I got a tackle head up, I got an inside tackle head up on a guard. That's my key responsibility, because that guy has no help. If he's going to get beat, he's going to want to hit. That's where he's going to cheat. So know the rules. Make sure you know the category of the holding, as well as what it takes to make a holding call a true holding call. You need to know the philosophy. Be sure to follow your assigners and your governing bodies' philosophy on holding. So all we got to do is go back to the rule book and go back to our goal book. It says it all in there for us. Know your initial responsibilities at the snap. Be sure you know who you are expected to watch, as well as when and where to watch them at. Be in position. Make sure that you are in the correct area in order to make the call. There was one time I made a call in a game, and what happened was I had a hold. The kid used it to his advantage, and next thing you know, it shouldn't have been a hold. You got to know your warning signs when the quarterback's flushed out. I'm going to stop here and move on into some film. I got about five clips I want to show you. Good. So we're going to see these three guys right here. These three guys are my suspect people. As you can see, I've moved over and I figured it out. There's a hook and restrict. So the tackle here, watch what he does. This guy comes inside and he underhooks him. Now that there, we took that straight from the line of scrimmage because it was right at the line of scrimmage where it initially backed up. We did it that way. Let's see here. Okay, this is from a scrimmage, but tells you right here on the outside. So right here, so I got two guys that are lined up here, head up. So I'm watching in this area, and as they're rolling out, there's the hook, and he's not moving. He's lost his feet. He made him go inside, tried to rip through, and couldn't get through. Okay, well, I think I showed, I got enough information there. So I'm going to pass it on to you guys now.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate
Sorry.
that. Oh, you did a great job. Both Carrie and Chris for spending some time with us this evening. That brings us to the end of our program. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening and hope you have a safe rest of your season. Thanks.